All right, I'm here. We are at our last class, class number 5, and the what we're going to talk about today is really going into the soul aspect. So we talked a lot about, yesterday we did sort of the journey into the underworld, right? And how when we clear up our shadow, it frees our energy and allows us to live in sort of more the wholeness of who we really are, and that's what we want. So today's class is going to be, what do we do? How can we consciously choose to stay in the soul aspect of us, in the sort of the light side of this whole experience? What does that have to offer us? What are the opportunities? Where is it good? And how can we feel good? How can we allow ourselves to feel good even when all the bad is going on? And I have to tell you that sometimes I feel guilty for feeling good when all the bad is on. Like I've had some really good days this week. Some crazy cool stuff's been happening for me. And I have to be a little like, oh, can I say that? Is it all right if I actually admit that I'm happy? And it's a little bit the same as, can I admit that I'm actually not okay? Like I've had both. And so that's what I want to talk about. How do we live in the more soul aspect of this, and what do we need to do to really occupy that space? Because I think it's important. And I think we have to work on it actively. Like sometimes we fall into the soul self accidentally, and that's beautiful when that happens. We have these like just moments that arise naturally in our life when we are connecting, like it's a beautiful day and we're connecting with somebody really having a good interaction, or we just wake up on the right side of the bed for a change. And that's great. And I think it's super empowering when we can choose, when we can create opportunities, routines. We're going to talk a little bit about routines and had practices today that encourage us or strengthen that side of us, so that we're having a more conscious, like a conscious decision to live on the light side of things. I actually have a tattoo on my arm. I don't know if you can see it. It's right there. That says bliss. And I actually tattooed it on my arm so I could remember. I have to look at it all the time. That bliss is a choice. That it's happiness is a choice. That we can't always get there, but we can often get there. Sometimes we can get there. All right. So where I want to start the conversation is to talk about, as empaths, sensitive caregivers, especially in this time when there's so much need around us, that we give and we give and we give and we give, right? And it's our nature to do that. It's our part of our life purpose to do that, actually. So when our energy tanks are full and we have a ton of energy, then we can, when we giving is a pleasure. It's part of our life purpose, actually, and feels really good. And when we don't have a full tank and we give on an empty tank, it causes a lot of problems for us, the problems of burnout. And I deal with this myself in my own life, and I'm sure that you do too. And it's always amazing to me and sort of sad that even though we know better, even though I know better, let me just put it that way, that I don't always give myself permission or even know what to do in order to fill the tanks. But we do know a lot about what happens when we don't, right? We have burnout, and and burnout is kind of this habitual or chronic overgiving that a lot of us can really fall into as sensitives, and especially during this time. So stress can wear us down. When we live in a constant state of overgiving and not replenishing our energy, really particularly fries your adrenal glands, all of your endocrine system, and your thyroid. So by the time it gets to your thyroid, you've been like giving on an empty tank for maybe 5 or 6 years. We sort of blow out the adrenals first, and then all our endocrine system goes up from there, through the glands and through the chakras, until by the time it hits your thyroid, you've been running on an empty tank for 5, 6 years, 10 years, something like that. And when we blow the thyroid, there's like a energetic, like the spiritual or energetic meaning of that. If you have a thyroid, either hot or cold, fast or slow thyroid, so when is it going to be my turn? When is it my turn to get my needs filled, right? The other thing that I see in the body a lot is diabetes in people who are chronic overgivers. So it comes from giving, and not having enough sweetness come into our life. So we're people tend to learn to refill their energy tanks from sugar. And if you do that and you're a chronic overgiver, you may go down the diabetes road. So, and then of course, all of those things, this chronic overgiving and burnout really blow our immune system too. So they compromise our immune system. And from an emotional perspective can cause anxiety and depression, right? That's a part of our sort of fatigue. Like we just don't want to go on anymore because like, I know when I get that feeling, I have this feeling of like being spread out too thin, like there's not enough of me anymore. Like I don't have a place in my own life, or my life is all about everybody else. And it makes me cranky and brittle and tired. And there's a real particular flavor to that feeling. So maybe that's true for you. And it might be really true, especially right now, that's something that's going on for you. So you can ask yourself, like, how burned out are you on a scale of 1 to 10? How burned out are you on a consistent basis? Because it's really, and I want to talk about how do we not do that? Just like, so our energy, our life force energy it's sort of like blood, right? So we have a limited supply of it. And when we use it, we have to replace it. We have to replenish it. And over time we can do that. But we don't really, sometimes we live in this idea or this illusion that we can give and give and give and give and give and give and never have to replenish ourselves. And that, in fact, replenishing ourselves is bad, is wrong, is bad people do that. It's not something we have to do. It's a weird expectation. I think women get it really strongly, Western women, people who kind of grew up with in the sort of the Christian or Catholic ideals about good people give and bad people take. Like we need to rethink that. For example, your car. You fill your car with gas, you drive your car, you don't expect your car to run without gas. That would be crazy, right? But we do expect ourselves to do that. And this is a good class to have your journal out again, by the way, to have something to write on. So what I want you to do, and you can do it now in your journal, or you can do it later if you didn't really go through it. But I wanted to teach you a way to find out, it's a really practical, cool way, to identify all the places in your life where you're overgiving. Because the first thing we've got to do when we clean this up is identify where we're overgiving. And sometimes we're so numb to this that we don't actually know where we're doing that or where the boundary should be or what even is normal, right? So this exercise is called the resentment inventory. And it's a really powerful way to tell that you've been overgiving. And it's beautiful because your emotional self system will give you a very clear signal that you're giving more energy into something than you're receiving in a chronic way because we feel the emotion of resentment. And a lot of times we don't pay attention to this. We kind of or we think we're a bad person because we feel resentful about something. But resentment is an excellent red flag that you're overgiving into a relationship, a situation. And I want you to, right now or later in your journal, write down everything in your life that you feel resentful about. Everything like your work, like what's going on there that makes you feel resentful in your home life, in your relationships, in your family, with your friends, any organizations or hobbies, committees you belong to. Look at every aspect of your life and ask yourself, where do I feel resentment? Put it on a list, cough it all up. Okay, and any place you're seeing that, and then I want you to really examine that and consider, what are you overgiving and where do you need to scale back your investment in that? There's really two ways we can do it. We can ask to receive more. Like if you're feeling resentful at work, you can you can go into your boss and say, I'd like a raise, so you even the balance, And if that's not a possibility, then you cut back on what you're doing. You reset your boundary, right? And this is the same thing in our relationships. If you have resentment in a relationship, you have where you're overgiving, you can ask the person to step up, like, I need to get more from you. Or you throttle back your own, what you're putting into the relationship. And I think a lot of times empaths, we're so prone to give everything we've got that it's a little bit of a mystery to us that other people don't do that too. And especially if we go into a relationship with a person who's more in the narcissistic category, because we have empaths one hand of the continuum, narcissists on the other hand of the continuum. And that's a polarity. So we talked yesterday about how our world is full of polarities. That's a really powerful one. And so it's a convenient relationship in a lot of ways, because we overgive and they overtake. And until we, often we will, as empaths, end up in relationships like that as kind of a soul's lesson on recalibrating this issue. So you may end up with a particular narcissist or a string of narcissists who are, their goal is to help push you into setting a better boundary, because that's really what that's what they'll do. They'll give you many opportunities to learn that lesson. And if you get rid of one, you might attract another one who's going to give you that lesson. So when the other thing that we can do is set another boundary. So we have to set a boundary, and this is really hard. So boundary seems like a big scary word, but it's really, and how do I even do that? And what is even a boundary? But it's really simple. There's a little tiny word that is what a boundary is. It's like at the bottom of all of it, and the word is no. Okay, so we need to learn how to say no. We need a lot of really polite, kind, compassionate ways to say no. And saying no is very challenging for us sensitive and empath types, because we can feel really mean when we say no. It's like it goes against our programming of what a good person is, or even our soul program that we're supposed to be giving. And yet we need to do it. It's a very useful, powerful little word. And people don't like it when you're chronically overgiving, and then you start saying no. It's a tricky thing, and it's something that we have to go through. So we train people how to treat us, right? They get used to our level of engagement with them, and when we change that, they're going to have their feelings, and that's okay. So they may, if you're working with a child or a spouse or even your boss or anyone in your life, and you start saying no, there's a lot of ways to do that. Usually telling them, like having a conversation with them if that's possible. This isn't really working for me, or my situation is changing and I need to redraw the boundary, and this is what the new boundary is going to be. And, maybe you compromise with them. There can be all kinds of things that you do to make that go better, but they're going to throw a hissy fit. They're going to not like it. They're going to push. They're going to really test to see whether you mean it, and it's really important that once you start that process, it's really dog training or toddler training, like if you think about it that way, it's like we're calm, we don't get upset, we are consistent. If you're calm and consistent and compassionate with your no, people will adapt. And here's the thing I want to tell you. I always sort of want to hold an empath's hand when I say this, but setting your boundaries is totally 100% on you. You are 100% responsible for your own boundaries. And it's very disempowering to blame others. That if you have a terrible boundary, blaming other people is not an empowering thing to do in that case. Or it's not very empowering to expect other people to understand where your boundary, to mind read where your boundary is, and then expect them to be the one to set it for you. That's just not the way this works. And so there's an incredibly powerful skill in energy management that we have to learn. That's where we take full ownership of that, and we just live in that space where we're fully owning that. So we have to do it. And eventually what happens is people come into a kind of respect for us. They learn respect. So it's counterintuitive. Rather than thinking that you're mean, what they're going to do is have respect for you over time when they calm down, right? And so I bring this up because we have to do the two things. We have to not, as we are learning energy management, we have to not absorb energy, but we also have to not leak energy. And that's the problem with the sponge. So the sponge leaks and the sponge also absorbs. So this leaking energy is where we don't have a good boundary, and we leak our own energy out of our energy field until we firm up our boundaries. And we do this by learning how to manage the actual outer edge of our boundary, of our energy field, which is what we've been talking about. And this other level, the psychological level of the no saying, and negotiating, compromising, all of that also has to be done. So consider that and really think about where I find, once I got my head around that, actually, I found it to be a very, very empowering process. When I realized it was on me and it was up to me, and that anything that I didn't like, I could change. It was messy, and it took a lot of research to do it, but ultimately it created an incredibly, how do I say this? It's like a feeling of being powerful in the world, or feeling like not afraid of the world in some way, that because I'm fully in charge, I can go through the world on my own terms if I am skillful in how to do that. And in my life is always like, I'm constantly in boundary school, and maybe you are too, because everything that new that I'm doing in my life requires me to really consider where my boundary is, where is it now I'm doing this new thing, how do I feel about it, what are the new requests that are coming in towards me. And I think this whole situation too, this is a new thing for us. I'm trying to figure out where my boundaries are. How much do I want to go outside? Where do I want to go? How much interaction do I want to have with people? How do I want to handle the requests of the many, many people who have needs? How much do I feel like giving? Where do I have to hold onto myself so I'm not overgiving? Like, this is, in all the years that I've been studying this and writing about this, is a big part of my new book, by the way. You're getting some sneak peek material into my new book called Energy Healing for Empaths. And it's with the publisher now, but it will be published in February 2021. So look out for it. And once I figured out really how to do it, I feel so much more powerful in the world. And I want that for you too. And I want you to have that skill, especially now as we go into this weird territory where we're all a little trying to figure out how to do this. So that's that part. The next part I want to talk about is really about the energy. How do we keep our energy tanks full, right? So we have to stop leaking and sucking energy, and then we have to put the energy into our energy tank as much as it goes out, or more. There's that sort of saying that goes around. I forget who said it, if it was Maya Angelou, said, like, you drink from the teacup and serve others from your saucer. I love that one. And I have to think about this a lot because it can be really a problem for me. But I want you to consider, really get out your journal again. We're going to do some journaling to consider what you need to do to put gas back in your tank. And in order to feel okay about that, you may have to go kind of work through whatever beliefs or vows you have had against doing that. Because many of us, again, have huge programming around it's not okay to take, it's only okay to give, right? So sometimes we have to work through that piece and really let it go. And if we don't, then we live in this state of chronic burnout, which is really actually not okay. It's not okay to let yourself do that. I'm going to tell you that right now, okay? So as we go through this, I want you to start writing down, if you hear something that I'm talking about, start writing down. Ultimately, I want you to have a list of 20, 40, as many as you can get, things that put gas back in your energy tank. And how do we know? How do we know? Because we feel good when we do it, when we feel energized, when we feel restored, when it's like refreshing to us, And I just would ask you to consider that when you're making this list, that you try to not put like addiction-y things in there, because eating sugar and drinking a giant cup of coffee, eating like 5 donuts and a big coffee like that, might give you the feeling of having energy, but it's actually not really giving you energy, and we can tell the difference because real gas in the tank only adds. Addictions have a hangover. They come with a price tag, So if we lean into the addiction-y stuff, sugar, alcohol, caffeine, whatever, drugs, I don't know, well, whatever your things are like that, we know they're not really good for us. We feel bad afterwards. That's what I mean by a hangover. You feel worse. Like I can eat a brownie, and I probably will later tonight. I'm just saying. But I know I'm going to feel bad. I'll have an energy crash. I'll have like a blood sugar issue. Everything in moderation is fine. But that's what I'm talking about. Like, does it give you the feeling of a hangover? Then I want you to put that off the list. So when I did my list today in thinking about this, it had things like rest, unscheduled time, which is something I almost never get, playing with my pets, reading, going in the tub, reading stupid books, not like improving books, going in my tubby, going for a walk, chamomile tea. I always have a cup. I always have a cup of tea 24/7. It's usually, herbal tea. Gardening, ballroom dancing, Pilates, hanging out with my friends, getting a massage, going to spas. I know what works for me, but I want you to do your list, and I want you to put a mix of things on your list. I want to put a mix of things you can do yourself, maybe things that involve other people. I want you to think about free things, because the more free things you have on there, the better. Things that don't cost any money, things that and there's lots of things that don't cost any money. A cup of tea, well, I would say it costs no money, but it's very little, right? Or going for a walk, sleeping, having a nap, reading. There's lots we can do that don't that are sort of our free daily things. Then maybe you have weekly things. You have things that you're going to get your nails done, or you're going to have a massage. That's more like a monthly thing. Maybe a weekly thing is lunch or a play date with a friend. And there might be some paid for things like sessions with a healer or spas. There may be like once a year things like vacations or special occasions. So pepper your list with a bunch of those. And ideally, so what I do is I hang that list on my fridge. And then every time I stick my head in the fridge, I go to stick my head in the fridge. I'm like, what's in the fridge? I look at my list to see whether I actually want something that's on that list instead of food, right? Introverts, if you're an introvert, you may need time alone. That may be a really big part of how you refresh your energy. But extroverts will need to tank up on social events and social things, right? Here's a few things to consider. You might want some nature in there, how to bring nature into your life. Maybe walking, hiking, gardening, tree hugging. Sunlight is incredibly filling. So sunlight, we've talked about this before, but it has the action of putting photonic or scalar energy into our system. So it's extremely beneficial for filling your energy tanks. Oxygen, taking in really fresh oxygen, they call it forest bathing. I always used to call it walking in the woods. Now it's got a term, forest bathing. That is another way to take in like ozone-y things too. So we really like the edge of the water and the land. So running water creates ozone, like streams, waterfalls, the ocean, surf. Those things are extremely beneficial for us. They have like a lot of oxygen, a lot of the right kind of oxygen that we need to breathe. That's very refreshing for real. Like it's super rejuvenating. So anytime you can get around those things, even putting a fountain in your room can help, or a fish tank or something that runs water can be super beneficial for that. So there's a lot we can do. And again, we want to just basic self-care. So this is going back to our conversation about self-care. Really taking care of yourself on a deep level, nurturing yourself. How do we nurture? I love self-nurturing, that concept. It's really different for everybody, and it can be a little challenging at this time. So what do you do for self-care, for self-nurturing? When you're really up against it, if you're really in a crisis point in your life, we can use self-nurturing almost like medicine. And you've lost somebody, or you're in a really depressed or anxious state, or you're in the middle of a crisis for real, like you're really up against it. And there's a kind of mode we can slip into, and we do it so easily for other people, and it's hard to do it for ourselves, but it's like treating yourself like you have the flu. So you bundle up in your jammies, you carry your teddy bear around, you let yourself sleep, you let yourself off the hook for things. You take your rescue remedy, your Bach flower remedy, if you like that kind of stuff. And really like drop into this like extreme self-care is something we all absolutely have to do, because you will need it in your life. Like stuff happens. Probably right now, there's a lot of people who are in that situation right now. They've lost a job. They're sick. One of their family members sick, or God forbid, somebody's actually passed away. We want to slip into this emergency. Like you need to figure out, before you get there, you need to figure out what that is, if you haven't already, and have it in your mind what we do when we go there. You can then do it for yourself. You can also do it for other people. And probably you already know how to do it for other people, but I want you to think about that thing you do for other people who are in a crisis and learn how to do it for yourself. Okay. So self-care can also be like very like snuggling, sensuality, sexuality, healthy sexuality is super, super, super restoring to our creative pursuits. So, I mean, to our energy tanks. So really like filling in like the body, sometimes I think of my body as like my pet, you know? And if it's my pet, if I'm going to get a puppy pretty soon, let's hope. And what do? You scratch it and you brush it and you shampoo it and you snuggle it and you feed it. Like if we loved ourselves, our own bodies with that kind of devotion and passion, we would have a really big leg up here. And we take it out for a walk, like we do all that stuff. It brings us joy to do that. If you had a pet, I want you to feel the same joy when you're doing that for yourself. And now I'm telling you, now more than ever, like we're going to be in this for a while. And, here we are, it's like beginning of April in New England, and we're on lockdown here in New England for another month. Yeah, that's so, okay. So that's what I want you to do is like, treat yourself. And there's some pleasure in that. There's like some delight, some joy. If we can kind of get over our hangups or our guilt about it and put that away, we can really experience this intense pleasure and joy around taking care of ourselves that way. Try it and let us know how it goes. Okay. Creative pursuits are also extremely filling to our energy tanks. And I really think that creativity is, as my friend Jacob Norby and I talked about this in the Facebook Live that we did, and he's a coach who really helps people get in touch with their creative selves. And he says, and I agree, that our soul speaks directly to us through our creative life. It's like bypasses our personal self, and goes, so creative things are direct transmission from the soul to the body, to our being, our self, that take the personal self out of the way. And it's really cool. So, and it doesn't have to be fancy. I mean, maybe it's singing in the car or singing in the shower. Maybe it's writing in a creative way, writing poetry or writing music. Maybe it's just dancing in your kitchen. It does not have to be like you're join the ballet, right? It's just can be whatever you can do. It can be any crafting. It can be proper art classes. It can be crafting. It can be my daughter loves paint by numbers. She gets paint by numbers for grown-ups, and she really gets that, fills her energy tank. I like to knit. I don't know. There's no right way to do it. It's really whatever brings you joy. Having a regular creative practice that puts you back in touch with your soul self, super, super, super important. So I want you to add some of that on your list and make sure you have some creative things there. The other one that I love that is very dismissed by most of our world right now would be play. So when it's a huge energy restorer, and we have huge vows and stories and negative programmings against it as adults, and we very sadly see it as unimportant. But again, play is just like creativity, and they're combined, they're close, can be an absolute direct path from your soul to, like, your soul energy is moving through you without the personality getting in the way. So it's super good. And there's so many ways to play. Kids do it and kids are so ensouled. It's like we're kind of in a way trying to get back to that person that we were, or that energy that we had before we got all messed up as grown-ups, right? And you can see kids, when they're left to their own, they run around, they play, they do creative things, and you can see the life force that puts into them. That's why they have so much energy, because they're not all like repressed and twisted up like we are. So think about how you want to play, and there's so many ways. Some people like games, sports games, card games, board games, and that's a great thing to do right now with your family. So you can check out and see how you do that. Now, introverted people might prefer quiet play, and play by themselves, or have imagination games, or play can be also really mixed with creative things. So it's not always about that. It's not always about games. So if you're an introvert, think about how it is you like to play. Maybe it's playing with your kids. Maybe it's playing with your animals, or playing out in nature that you're doing if you're a more introverted type, or maybe for you also, anyone, the play can be very mixed with our creative things. So musical, if you like to play music or instrument, or you're in the performing arts in some way, even as an amateur, there's sort of a blend of play and creativity that's so enlivening to our souls. Okay, so the other thing that we need to do, that you absolutely need to put on your list, because you're all advanced in your spiritual journeys right now. So as an advanced spirit, you need to absolutely make sure that you have spiritual practice as part of your filling your energy tanks. And that can be a lot of different things for a lot of different people. It's really personal what our spiritual practice is. So as we go through our soul's development, we can have religion is sort of a middle soul experience of spirituality. We sort of need structure, or we need rules, we need a tribe and things like that. And then when we get to old soul, a lot of us transition out of that and head more into spirituality. And spirituality is a direct connection between us and God. We have our own, I say God, divine source, whatever you want to say. We have our direct connection, and sometimes we get that in religion. So there's some people who can make that direct connection inside of a church or inside of a church service, and if you can, that's fantastic. There's really actually no wrong way to do spiritual practice, but it's okay too if you can't, and you need to feel your own way through this, or make up your own spiritual practice. So, and it could be like yoga is a fantastic spiritual practice for a lot of people. So is meditation. So is church services. So is walking in the woods. Maybe you're a chanter or a drummer, right? The trick with spiritual practice is, and especially at this stage, like if you're new to that concept, it's totally fine to experiment and try something. Try guided meditations, try sitting meditation. If you're going to learn how to meditate, by the way, you really need to get a teacher. Guided meditations are a good beginning. Like they're good, and there's so many of them, and they're excellent. I do them myself. Clearly, I'm giving you all these guided meditations. And eventually try a sitting meditation. By sitting meditation, I mean that's not a guided meditation. You're doing it yourself. And when we do get to that part of our evolution, you need a teacher, you need a method, you need a group. So I've done transcendental meditation, which uses a mantra practice. I've done many variations of Buddhist meditation, including Zazen meditation when I lived in Japan. I've done insight meditation. I've learned many different meditative techniques because we need a technique, or you go crazy and feel like you're not doing it right. And it's normal to feel that way. So in the beginning, get with that and then practice it. So this is important because at this point in your spiritual life, in your soul's evolution, you need to have a spiritual practice that if you're not doing it every single day, 5 days out of the week, every other day, and your overall progress as a soul evolving down through will stop. If you don't have a spiritual practice that you do regularly. We can get so far and then we kind of hit a wall. We don't evolve beyond that until we do that. And so it's important to do it. And I think in the early stages of that, we can play around. We can try this, try that. Or this day we can do yoga, and this day we can do meditation. There's something very powerful that happens when you commit to a spiritual practice and you do like, every day or every year, every day for a year, maybe start with 30 or 40 days. Like those challenges are very powerful because when we make ourselves do it, even when we don't want to, because your personality self doesn't want to do this. Your personality self doesn't want to, is bored 3 seconds into studying meditation. And it will come up with a whole bag of tricks about why you don't want to do it, why it's boring, why it's stupid, why it doesn't need to be done. And I get it, like that's the normal squirminess or the monkey mind, we call it. And there's something, if we're going to spend more time living in our soul self, we really, really need to work through this particular challenge, or we just don't get very far. We hit a dead end. So think about pick one, doesn't matter what you pick. Could be yoga, could be meditation. I don't know. I don't care what it is. Commit to doing it for the next 30 or 40 days. And then, or every other day, 5 days a week, whatever you feel like is right for you. And then on the mat, you go onto the mat and you sit there and you squirm until I don't want to do this. So your personal self is sort of like a toddler. Sorry, I don't want to, and stay. Okay, yep, I get, those are my thoughts and feelings, and we go. And when we learn, if we want to spend more time in the soul self, we have to discipline. It takes some discipline. And I don't mean like bad girl discipline, bad boy discipline. I mean like exercise. Like we strengthen the muscle. We spend more time. By committing to a spiritual practice, like you're telling yourself that you're committed to spending more time in your soul self and that it's so important that you're going to do it. And you're going to, with calmness and compassion, calm down the inner child and the squirmy little monkey mind and the squirmy toddler self that we have that doesn't want to do it. I know. And we're going to do it. And when we do that, we have incredible quantum leaps in our spiritual growth. We just do. And this is a good time for it, right? So this is really important to do right now because we need to add our light to the general light that we were talking about before. We need to add our energy. We need to spend more time in the soul self so we can keep illuminating humanity and the planet. So I feel like it's super important to do this right now. Do what you can. I mean, to really, really have, I'm not saying you need to spend 14 hours in meditation a day. I just think half an hour in the morning, half an hour at night, it's gonna be super important. And did you know that yoga was designed in India by yogis to prepare them for meditation? So we do yoga kind of all backwards in America, where we do yoga for an hour and then do 5 minutes of shavasana. So real yoga was designed to move open up the energy meridians, open up the chakras, so that you could sit in meditation for a comfortable amount of time and not go crazy sitting there. So try a little. That's what I do. So a little yoga and a lot of meditation. So here's another way to look at the energy, and so I'm giving you a few different frames for this. Here's another question about feeding yourself. How do I feed my body? Write that question down in your journal and answer it. How do you feed your body energy? Really good, the good stuff. How do we feed it energetically, not just food, right? Sleep, food, exercise, sex, sensual pleasures, air, oxygen. I don't know, like what do you need to feed your body? Okay. It's an individual question. I can't answer that for you, but I want you to contemplate it, meditate on it, journal on it, right? How do I feed my emotional self? How do I nurture, feed, put energy into that part of me? Therapy, love relationships, all relationships, journaling, creating, playing, socializing. What maybe that's for me. Okay, what is it for you? How do I feed my mental self? How do I feed my mind? That might be learning, creating, teaching, reading. How do we feed and stimulate our minds? And then how do you feed your spiritual self? How do you feed this soul side of you? Maybe that will be meditation, spiritual practice, religion, reading spiritual books, feeling inspired, watching TED Talks. I don't know. Whatever it is, you need to know what those things are for you, and you need to level up your game right now, whatever you're doing, because we just do. All right. The last thing that I want to say about putting energy in here is to talk about gratitude. So gratitude is one of the most powerful ways that you can stay in your higher soul self. Gratitude is such an incredibly high frequency. They say that gratitude and joy are the two highest frequency emotions. Love is actually underneath that. Love, gratitude, and then joy. Those are the three highest emotions that we can have, the highest frequencies. And when we feel gratitude, we are automatically in our soul state. Our personality can have gratitude too, when we do. One of somebody that I just talked to told me recently that appreciation is the personality experience. So when we appreciate something, we're in our personal self. But gratitude is a soul level experience. So when we're in a state of gratitude, we're already in that soul state. And the interesting thing is, by having a gratitude practice, you can actually choose to switch into this soul state kind of at will. So the more time we spend in that gratitude state, the more we're exercising our soul and spending more time there. So having a gratitude practice is something that can really help. And then a lot of people have a gratitude journal or do gratitude meditations. It's something that I do. Part of my ritual practice is to do a gratitude. So my evening ritual practice is I meditate for about half an hour before I go to bed. And then I do a gratitude journal. Then I think of a list of 5 to 10. I do as many as I can. What am I grateful for? What happened today that I was grateful for? I had food in the fridge. I was grateful for this class that I'm doing with you guys. I still have some toilet paper. My family is safe. My friends are safe. Like, I'm safe and cozy and warm today. Like, and we could go on and on about what we feel grateful for, but it is incredibly powerful to do that. So I want you to do that. And that, think about it. I want you to think about it. You don't have to do any of this stuff I'm telling you, but I'm just giving you a lot so you can find your own way through that. And the way another way that I'm going to offer that you do this is to really create what my friend Rubel calls a power practice for yourself. And he's an incredible business strategist, and he's really a really powerful, motivating, inspirational person in my life. And he had me really codify these power practices: a morning power practice and an evening power practice. And I've been doing it for a while now, and I can tell you that it has significantly changed my ability to stay in my soul self. And I really have to operate in that space a lot, because I got stuff going on. I got stuff happening. I can't be like taken out at the knees and be wallowing around in a mess. I just don't really have time for that. I need to stay more in this soul self. So what's helped me is the first thing that I do and you're going to write your own. You don't have to do it, but I want you to come up with something that works for you. And what he taught me was that the morning power practice is extremely important, because what it does is that we use whatever tools we do to consciously shift us into the soul state, into our higher self, our soul self. And then for me, when I'm there, I can stay at that level through the day, and then I'll have dips. Like, I'll be like, oh, that's hard. I'll look at the news and I'll be like, oh, or I'll talk to somebody and I'll get rattled. But then I get back up into it. And so I stay on that level, and then I do another one at night to kind of bookend my day in this particular way. And if I do, I start strong and I stay strong. In that soul place. And if I don't do it, and I didn't do it was like a couple days ago, and I was kind of a mess all day. Like, then I feel like I'm starting low and I'm like climbing a mountain. I might reach a peak, and then it kind of crash again. And I'm like, all day long, I'm like, oh, So it just makes a huge difference for me. So what can you do? What is your power practice going to be? What can you do for that? And it might be like, for me, it's a journal practice in the morning. So I journal, and I do Jacob's journal thing that we talked about in class 2. And then I meditate. I do the method that my friend, spiritual teacher Bob Lancer, taught me. And then I do a meditation. It takes me 45 minutes to an hour. I get up and do it. I get up early. I get up an hour early so I can do that. And then sometimes I add exercise in there. Like probably every other day. And then I'm getting up 2 hours early. So I'm going for a long walk. I'm going to do some yoga. And it's hard, because it means that I'm dedicating that amount of time to my state of mind, to my state of consciousness. Because we talked about this. So one thing you can control in the situation, or any situation, is your state of consciousness. That's it. That's all you've got. And as you stay, everything else is unrolling the way that it does, right? So it's the most important thing you can do. It's your biggest priority, is to tool up your state of consciousness to the highest degree that you can, and stay there as long as you can. And then when we fall, it's fine. you do your emotional clearing. You clear it. You journal, you cry, you do the method, you meditate, you cough it all up, you process it all out, and then we go back up into that soul state. And then we look forward, as we were talking about before, we look forward to the triggers because they clear stuff out of the way so we can go back to a higher level of the soul state. And I wouldn't be telling you this if I wasn't doing it myself. And having committed to that has changed my life completely. Like, it's really led me into this much deeper state of being that I'm, and operating that I'm doing now. So what can yours be? I want you to think about it. Maybe you get up and you go for a walk, and then you come back and drink some green juice, and then do your journal and meditation. I don't know, maybe it's yoga, whatever it is, think about it and get there. Okay, the last thing that we're going to talk about before we do our meditation, is a super cool meditation, is this is an incredible time to look forward in life. And it's been so interesting to me because starting early or late last year when I was doing readings for people, I started to get a lot of information around how 2020 was going to be a year for manifesting, for creating, to think about what we wanted to create in the future. And the guidance that was coming through, and what my guides were saying to a lot of people, was take time to think about what you want to create. It was a very strong message. And this is an incredible time to consider what you want your life to be. There are a lot of people saying, and so much of this is true, and some of it's theory, but I really think there's a lot of truth to it, that people have been saying, well, we're coming out of the third dimension into the fifth dimension. What does that mean? It means that we're coming out of our personality and moving into our soul state. We're coming out of, all these souls are waking up into the new earth, whatever you want to call that, whatever that is. And the fifth, if you've ever wondered what it means when people talk about the fifth dimension, it means this. It means living in your soul most of the time and not in your personality. It means putting your primary identification of who you actually are, is that soul state, not the personality. The personality is a servant to the soul. And until we really wake up again, what happens is we believe that our personality is our soul, right? And our personality is who we are. We believe that's who we are. We identify that. We identify with that. So the fifth dimension, if you've heard of that, or it's sort of like a quantum way of being, we understand that that's not who we are, right? I like this analogy. It's kind of good that, if you know anything about physics, so there's Newtonian physics, and that is very A plus B equals C. There's these the laws of thermodynamics, and these, universal laws and gravity and things. Like, it's sort of like a mechanical way of looking at things. And I'm not saying it's not true, because there's a level of that's true. Now, that's the third dimension. And then the fifth dimension is like quantum physics. And quantum physics is like seeing the unified field, seeing the holographic nature of the universe, seeing that when we think about one particle over here, we can change the other particle over here, and that there's no difference if those particles are resonating across time and space. And as we shift into this fifth dimension, we become quantum beings. We become aware of all of those things. And that's where the bulk of humanity is going, or more and more and more. There's a wave of people that have come incarnated onto our planet during this time in life in order to make that leap, in order to make this huge leap in human evolution. It's so cool. It's so beautiful, right? And as we do that, the old three-dimensional structures are breaking down. That's what we're in the middle of the breakdown right now. All those things are crashing down. It happens on our person in a personal way too. So when we go through a strong upshift in our vibe, when we really level up, when we really go through an incredibly transformative experience and we raise our vibration, our old life collapses. And I'm sure this has happened to you if you're at least once or twice in your life, where you've had the total life makeover. You got divorced and quit your job and moved out of town and got the blank slate, And usually that happens because you've done so much work on yourself that you're no longer vibrating in a way that's resonant or harmonious with your old life. If you know anything about the tarot cards, this is the Tower in the tarot card. I love the tarot, so I'm always working with that. And then what happens with the tarot is that in the tarot card of the Tower, you'll see the tower is really narrow, and the lightning strike comes and knocks the top off the tower, which looks like a crown. So it opens the bolt of illumination, opens your crown chakra, and breaks the tower apart, because the tower is too thin, it's too small to contain your spirit anymore. And it's a difficult card in a lot of ways, because we experience the total reset, total crash and burn, total like everything collapses. That's what we're in now. We're in that as an entire world. So the entire globe is experiencing the Tower card right now. It's so interesting, but it's not totally frightening. It's so interesting, right? And so what I think is where there's an opportunity for you personally, for all of us personally, is to contemplate, to consider, if this is a new world, really, which I think it is, what do you want? What would you like to manifest? What would you like to create? And I think this reset that we're having is allowing us to reevaluate our lives, to check in with where we're at, to get off sort of the autopilot we were on. Well, do I really like that spouse? And do I really like this house? And do I really like that job and this career? And I don't know, the whole thing, like the reset is changing everything so that we can have time to consider and choose a life, I think, that's more aligned with our values. That's sort of what I'm experiencing, what I see a lot of other people are experiencing too. So it's a good time to also, in your journal or in your contemplation, write about what it is you would like. And you can do this in the journal question of, I'm so happy and grateful that, and think of us, I'm so happy and grateful that, we've all come out of this experience and the world is in this happy, beautiful new place, and everyone that I love is healthy, and my books are selling like crazy, and I've just found all this incredible way to serve humanity even more deeply than I ever did before. Okay, that might be something that you do. Whatever it is, like, let your imagination run free. In a minute, we're going to do a guided meditation where I'm going to give you an opportunity to have a direct experience to this soul part of you and talk to it directly. It's so cool to be able to do that. So what would you like? What would you like to create for your personal self? What are your highest values now? What do you need to bring into your world? And what do you think is possible for us as a collective? How would you like to see humanity evolve? Maybe we all sell our big houses in the suburbs and go live in tiny houses off the grid and grow our own gardens and help each other. I don't know. That sounds good to me. What sounds good to you? If you had a magic wand, how would you want the world to be like? What do you want to see on the other side of this? And what about you personally, for your life and your family? And I want you to hold this as an aspiration. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't think there's any way to know what's going to happen. But I want you to aim the bar high. And as we hold that as an ideal, as an aspiration, as a vision of what we're moving towards, we can, again, add our weight to the light, the other light of the world. So that's so fun. It's so cool. And if you're paying attention, I'm sure you already see it happening. I'm sure you already see not only the difficulties and the pain of the deconstruction, but also like the new things that are growing, the new ways people are helping each other, the heart and soul that's coming out in as we come together, as we drop sort of the Haiti kind of polarity that we were in, like hater versus hater that we were in just even a few months ago, and are really showing up to help each other. And what can we then create from that? So let's do this cool meditation. It's our last meditation together. And this is the Meet Your Soul meditation. It's really fun. So let's try it. Before we do this one, I just wanted to say that I am, in a few weeks, I'll be starting this inner child class. So if you feel like you want to do more inner child work, it's starting in the end of April. And if you want to do more inner child work, you can let me know, because it's a powerful class. It's a 10-week class. It's pretty intense. It's incredibly transformational. It's not for the faint of heart, I'll tell you right now. It's deep. And it's probably the deepest class and I do, and I'll give you more information if you want to talk about it. It's starting again too. And the other thing that I have is a Mastering Your Psychic Development class, and that is runs all the time. It's 12 weeks. It's fantastic. It's my signature program. So if you feel like this is a time for you to spend more time developing your psychic ability, that's a class you can come into. And some of the people in this group are in that class. So let me know if you're interested in it. And if you feel like moving on and carrying on, you can let me know. All right, but anyway, let's do connect to our soul meditation. So I want you to put your feet on the ground, get your spine upright. You know what to do now. Uncross your arms and legs. And just do that sort of first inventory of checking in. Where are you? How are you feeling? What's present for you right now in this moment? Breathe into your body and your heart. Just begin the grounding. Welcome yourself back into your body. We need a lot of grounding right now. So feel yourself move into your legs and your feet. Breathe down into your feet. Take a deep inhale in the top of your head. And on the next exhale, drop the grounding cord down through the layers of the building, down into the earth, down, down, down. Drop that grounding cord as deep as you can get it into the earth, and then make it nice and wide. Maybe sewer pipe or trash can size wide. And let's do a little clearing. So breathe light in the top of your head. Breathe to your heart or your belly or anywhere else you feel needs it, and then exhale down the grounding cord. This is where we squeeze the sponge, release any extra energy, any picked up energy, any static, anything that's not yours, down the grounding cord on the exhale breath, with a prayer, with a blessing to the earth. It's really good. You guys are getting good at this. And do this again. Breathe it in. Fill your whole self with light. And exhale down again, releasing any of your own feelings. Let it go down. And today, let's reverse the current a little bit. So on your next inhale breath, I want you to breathe up the grounding cord. We're going to ask for some healing from Mother Earth today. We're going to imagine that now on your next inhale breath, you're going to draw energy up the grounding cord like you're sucking from a straw. And bring it up into you. It's sort of warm and liquid energy, and it's very nurturing. It's sort of motherly, like Earth Mama energy. Bring it up through your legs and your feet. Let yourself fill. It's a really good way to fill your tanks. So draw that up into your belly. And then up into your heart. Each breath, you're pulling the light of, it's called the light of the earth, by the way, this energy. You're pulling the light of the earth up and now, up into your heart and your throat, and all the way up into your head. You can even kind of fountain out the top of your head. And the truth is, we always have a mix of these two energies moving through us. And one of the best ways we can restore our energy and keep our energy tanks full is to really breathe from both of these places at once. So right now in this moment, fill up with this delicious motherly energy. Let yourself be nurtured and filled. Let it come to every cell, every part of your being, any part of you that feels that needs nurturing. Bring this energy right into you. You'll notice it feels really different from the divine light, but we need both. We actually need both of these streams of energy. And now from this place of feeling more grounded and clear, just take a little look at your energy, the outer edge of your bubble. Make sure your bubble's on and that it's looking good. You can put the light in your bubble if you want. If you need a little extra grounding or a little extra protection, make sure that there's a lot of light running through. You can pull the light of the earth all the way out to the bubble. See how that feels? And now I want you to invite towards you your soul self, the fullness of your soul, like the part of you that exists before you were born, part of you that's always been here, it's the aspect of you or the fullness of you that you will go back to when you're no longer here. It's your best guide, it's your best friend, it's your best source of information. Let that come forward. And I want you to open up your psychic senses. Notice, what does that feel like? How does it feel to be in the presence of your soul? How do you feel in your body? What emotions are there? Maybe you're seeing something. What does it look like? What does it sound like? And you can ask if it has a name. Sometimes it will give you a name that isn't the same as your name. Sometimes we don't. It's okay. It might just say, I'm you. And now I want you to ask your soul self to give you any information you have that you need right now to help you navigate this time in our history. What does it want to tell you about how to get through this to your best degree? Just let the answers come to you in whatever ways they do. Ask your soul if you have a problem or a worry or a concern, something really on your mind bothering you. Ask your soul self now to tell you, give you some advice, give you an answer to that question or comfort. Or maybe it will tell you that you're doing the right thing, or it might show you a different way. So just ask whatever you want. Ask whatever's on your mind if you need help with something. Now we're going to ask the soul self to show you an image or a vision of your future. Where does it want you to go? Where is it trying to get you? What is the highest expression of your life moving forward? How does it want you to serve or create or do or be? Now your soul self is going to give you an energy transmission. It's going to give you a big boost of energy. Maybe it hugs you, maybe it blesses you, maybe it steps into your body with you. It's going to give you an initiation right now, a bump up. And allow that to happen in whatever way that it does. Maybe it wants to fully merge with you. And now we're going to thank this part of us. Thank your soul self for all of its love and guidance. It's always had your back. It's always been there. It's always been showing you the way. It's always been cheering you on. It always loves you 100% unconditionally, no matter what. and it always will. So if you have a little bit of extra energy in you right now, just release it back down the grounding cord. Bless Mother Earth again. Prayer and blessing with some extra energy. Just begin to come back into yourself, begin to come back into the room. You can wiggle your fingers and toes. When you feel ready, open your eyes.